Okay. Okay. Well, welcome. This is the 2020 third quarter NG911 GIS user group meeting. Thank goodness we started. Oh, good morning. If everyone can just mute their line, that would be great. You know, boy, now that we started this whole webinar thing a few years ago, I'm really glad we did because, like I said, we're all could be at home, could be in the office, who knows where at this point in time. And we found this to be pretty effective to be able to talk to everyone and give you all updates. So I'm glad we started this and it's been working and that you all could join us today. All right, well, let's talk about our agenda. So the usual update items. I'll start things off by giving a project update. And then I've asked Ken Nelson to join us today. He's going to give us an update on the NG911 ortho imagery refresh. Kristen Jordan Koenig will give us an update on the NG911 toolbox. And then Sherry Massey will talk about the GeoIMSAG and geospatial call routing. So we've got an action-packed group of presenters today. We've got a whole crew lined up today. So. All right, so just some different project update items. A reminder, the Q3 GIS data submission deadline is coming up at the end of the month, September 30th. And thank you for all the submissions. As usual, we continue to receive. We even got a few this morning. So thanks for going ahead and submitting when that data is ready. And as you know, that then gets updated into the EGDMS as well as Radius Plus, the new call handling mapping system. So that all is used to populate all that information. So important to get those updates in. So just a reminder, yeah, that deadline's end of the month. Another reminder I have is that I sent out a mass email that the Hexagon hosted 2018 imagery service will be expiring soon. And DASC has set up a replacement image service to use instead of the Hexagon service. The contract's expiring for that particular imagery contract. So that service will be going away soon. It's still licensed imagery and you have to have credentials to use the service. So all your existing credentials that were established for the Hexagon service will work on the new DAS service. So if you did not receive a notification about that or feel like you should have access to that imagery, again, it's not public domain, it's a password protected service. Feel free to contact myself or Kristen, and we'll see if you are an existing user or if you need to submit a request to apply to become a user. So just a reminder, that is the 2018 imagery service. Of course, the 2015 imagery is public domain. That service is out there available for anyone to use. So that's kind of the difference between the two. Also included the statewide hosted call system status map, call handling system status map. Everything in green, so all the PSAPs in green are currently live on the system. The Jackson County, this little blue dot, that's actually the Prairie Band Potawatomi tribe, and they actually just cut over to the system last week, so they should be green now. So you can see we've been working very busy getting everyone not only on the call handling system, but even migrating to some upgrades that Sherry will talk about here in a little bit. At this point in time, Geary County is in the queue. They're preparing to migrate over to the hosted solution. And then the PSAPs or counties in purple have showed interest, no commitment at this time, but are interested in joining the solution. So we need to see what they decide. Of course, the lighter green counties, that's the whole MARC region, and they have their own system, their own solution. So they will not be joining the system. And then all the counties in orange at this time have their own 911 system that is working for them. And so they won't be joining the host solution at this time either. So that's kind of a status map of how kind of widespread currently the statewide hosted call handling system is. Okay. All right, with that, I think I'm gonna unmute Ken. I'll actually allow him to see. Let me find you in my list real quick here, Ken. Let's see, there you are. Okay. All right, can we hear you, Ken? Okay, so this is Ken Nelson will provide the update on the ortho imagery.
Okay, first, just a little bit of a background on where we've been. I think most of you on the line here are familiar with this. I'll just give kind of a quick recap. We've done 2 statewide projects, one that spanned really kind of 13, 14, and 15, but most of that was done in 14 and 15. Statewide 1-foot leaf off natural color. That imagery was originally licensed, but is now in the public domain. And that project, excuse me, was 100% funded by the 911 Coordinating Council. We did another collect in 2018, more or less the same specifications, but we were able to procure the color infrared band as well. That one was largely funded by the 911 Coordinating Council with some cost share from the Kansas Department of Transportation through the Traffic Records Coordinating Council, and some cost share through Kansas Department of Revenue. I just noticed the type on the slide. The cost share from KDOT should have been noted there as $100,000. And then we had $45,000 in cost share from Department of Revenue. And then the remaining balance was funded through the 911 Council. As Eileen noted earlier, this imagery is used within the call handling mapping system, which is now Radius Plus, a rapid deploy product. Prior to that, we were shipping the imagery out on NAS boxes for the older mapping system. Now we've migrated to Rapid Deploy's Radius Plus, so we're able to provide that via imagery service, so that much more efficient way of providing access to the imagery for the 911 call handling mapping system. Outside of the 911 project, though, the imagery is used really across state and local government to support a variety of GIS and mapping applications. It's also the primary layer within the ORCA app. So if local jurisdictions have a more recent imagery data set or a higher res imagery data set that they'd like to use, we support that, but it's kind of become our default imagery base map for the state. So we've done 2, and we're getting ready to do a 3rd. So Eileen, if you want to go to the next slide. So we released an RFP on July 8th. It closed August 3rd. We had a really good evaluation committee. So this really kind of spanned GIS professionals, state and local government. I'm sure you recognize many of the names here on the list. We had one name you might not recognize there, Dean Heineken. He was our procurement officer from the state Division of Procurement. Randall White is the program manager for the 911 Coordinating Council. So we had a couple people that were kind of helping guide us through that procurement process. But from the GIS perspective, I think we had a really strong team, and we had some really good proposals, and I think a very solid process for reviewing both the technical proposals and the cost proposals. In Kansas, you review those separately, at least at the state level. So once we worked our way through that whole process, the contract was ultimately awarded to Surdex. So we are very pleased with that. I think as most of you know, that they were our vendor on the previous 2 statewide acquisitions. So as I mentioned, we had some good proposals, but Surdex won out here. So we're thrilled to maintain our relationship with Surdex. We have a 3-year agreement with a 3-year renewal possibility there. So once we get through the 3-year period here, if we want to trigger that extension, we can, or we can put it out for bid again, presuming the 911 Council wants to continue to fund this endeavor. Next slide. So a little more about the project specifications. In some ways similar, statewide collect, 1-foot, leaf off, color and color infrared. One primary difference is we're sort of stepping away from the licensed imagery product. I think the license we had through Surdex and through Hexagon was fairly reasonable in that we could do pretty much anything we wanted to except for put it out for use in the public domain. But on the DAS side of things, that really put in place a fair amount of management overhead. So it will be nice for us to move away from that and just have a truly public domain imagery product that we can put up, and you know, non-authenticated map services, public domain file downloads, and that sort of thing. The file formats are GeoTIFF and Mr. SID. We also built into the RFP options for multiple map projections. Of course, commonly used across local governments, state, plain, north, and south is one of the primary deliverables, but we are going to procure some other options there as far as map projections. KDOT was interested in getting the imagery delivered in their Kansas regional coordinate system, which is their low distortion projection definition. KDOT also has a statewide Lambert, so that will be another deliverable. And then once the state plane 2022 reference frames are published, we will also take that as a deliverable. I've come to understand that there's going to be a bit of a delay. We might be looking at 23 or 24 before that actually happens, although the name is not changing. But nonetheless, given the long-term nature of the agreement here, we will also have Surdex go ahead and project that data into SB 2022 as well. The accuracy specifications, as noted there, we actually asked for cost proposals for both 60 centimeter RMSE X and Y and 30 centimeter. It noted in the graphic here towards the bottom of the screen, we will procure the 30 centimeter, that what's noted in the ASPRS specification as the highest accuracy work for 30 centimeter data. So that will be one step above what we had for the 2018 data. So we feel good about that as well. I think I had one more slide here, Annie. So some other project components, we were able to make state and local government buy up part of this as well. We'll be getting more information out about that, but really very similar to what we did on the 2018 project, where that will be available over the life of the agreement. If you have any interest in that, even starting today, you can certainly contact Tim Donzie. But we'll be getting more. This agreement got signed, I think, fully executed Thursday of last week. So this is kind of hot off the presses here. But if you know Tim, you could certainly reach out to him now and begin your dialogue with him about buy-ups. But we'll be getting out pricing information, kind of like we did last time. Disaster response imagery is part of this as well. We hope to never use that, but we did on the previous agreement. Should you need more information on that, you can contact Scott Eckberg with the 911 Council, or certainly the DASC office, and we can provide more details there. Next slide. So as far as project timeline, planning really has begun now. Acquisition won't take place until next year, so mid-February through mid-April-ish, kind of that typical leaf offline season, weather permitting. The plan is to collect the entire state in one flying season. We were fortunate in 2018 that they were able to get that done. So we'll hope for good weather conditions. We'll have a pilot area delivery in May. The ortho imagery is supposed to be posted to SurCheck in October. And this is really kind of a key step here, because it's such it's really a massive project, a lot of data, and we can't really do an effective job at just reviewing all that within the staff we have at DAS. So last time, I think we made a really effective use of the SurCheck system. I know Eileen and Kristen were able to coordinate a pretty large group of volunteers across local government. So we expect to do that again. So just kind of a heads up that as we get closer to that timeline, we're more or less a year out from that now. But if you're interested, you'll have that opportunity again. And I think that really serves to make the project and the data that much better. And then final delivery in December of 21. That's all of our deliverables except for the state plane 2022 So we will start receiving some before then, but really looking to wrap this up at the end of the calendar year next year. So it's a ways off, but in terms of procurement and getting our line in with the vendors and getting a good price point for the imagery, we had to start early. So I think that was the last slide there, Eileen, and then happy to take questions from the group if there are any, or if you're doing that at the end of this, we can hold off till then.
Either way, we always just ask people to submit their questions via chat.
Okay.
If they like, and then we can certainly at the end of the meeting attempt and unmute and see if anyone, or just let me know, unmute me, I've got a question. We can work on that as well, but I'll watch the chat screen
Okay.
to see if anything come in. So you might get called on again, Ken, we'll see. Okay, great, thank you. I don't see any questions at this time, so thank you, Ken, for that update. I think it's so exciting that we you know, we went for years without imagery, years and years and years, and the fact that we're on a regular, the Corning Council's generously funding this regularly, pretty much on a 3-year refresh cycle, is pretty amazing. So we're excited that we had that opportunity again.
Absolutely. One thing I didn't, since you brought up funding, I forgot to note there in the slides that we will have a cost share that again there from KDOT, from the Traffic Records Council, on the 21 project too. So and possibly from revenue, we're still working on that, but yeah, as you mentioned, the council's funding the lion's share of this, but wanted to note the cost share from the other groups.
Yeah, and that always helps as well, helps us make sure we can keep getting this imagery. So we appreciate that. Okay, good. All right, thank you, Ken. Now we're going to switch gears here, and I will unmute Kristen Jordan Koenig, who is going to update the toolbox. I just got to find you on my list here, Kristen. Let's see here. It's great. We've got a nice turnout today. Let's see here. Okay, Kristen, are you already unmuted?
Sure. I don't know.
Super. I didn't have to do a thing. All right. Thanks, Kristen. Go ahead.
Cool. Well, here's the update. We can go to the next slide. We don't really have an update for the toolbox. It is surprisingly stable. So you get crickets. So we can go to the next slide. For code behind the scenes, we've been doing some work on post-processing. So after you submit to the NG911 portal, what happens to your data? Since we're transitioning away from Vesta Locate over to Radius Plus, that is, we've been simplifying the data processing process actually. So that's cool. It's like taking away code instead of adding code. And that's about all for my update. It was pretty non-eventful.
I guess that's good with all the events that have been happening.
Yeah.
Non-toolbox related. I think that's the first time a slide's kind of grossed me out. You know. So yeah. Well, that's a good update. Okay. Well, I put out a reminder to everyone in the chat that if you do come up with a question, feel free to submit it. So if you have anything for Kristen, let us know. I don't see anything at this time. So we will switch over to Sherry's update. Let's see here. So maybe you can unmute yourself, Sherry. Let's see, I'll ask to unmute you. Let's see how this goes. All right, and now Sherry Massey will provide her update.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to give a quick update on, I don't know if it's that quick. There's quite a few things to talk about on the GeoMSAG and geospatial call routing and on the mapping application that PSAPs are currently using your data in, because it's quite relevant to what we do. So next slide, please. First, I have a couple of news items. There are 99 PSAPs. And I miscounted this morning when I said 93 counties and put on there. It's actually 91. But 99 PSAPs in 91 counties that are on I3 and routing solely via GIS data. So this information about how the geoprocessing works and about how the mapping works applies very broadly across the state, everybody on the hosted solution really. The other news item is about training, and with everything going on and the lack of in-person meetings, I wanted to give everybody an update on where we're at with that. So the GIS Data Steward class has been created as an online class for 911 personnel in what is called the Learn platform, which is a platform that the council provides to the PSAPs. But because of funding limitations, if you don't actually work directly for a PSAP, you cannot get access to that platform. So still in the process of trying to find a good and reasonable way to offer that same material on a different platform for data maintainers that do not work directly for PSAPs. Again, this is just the steward portion of the class, but I wanted to give you guys that information that's out there, and that will be available to you guys as soon as we find a good, reasonable way of doing that. But the GIS Data Maintainer class, which will cover the necessary material from the Data Steward class for you guys, will be offered virtually at the CAM conference this year, the official time, Tuesday, October 27th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And the recording of the session will be available afterwards to anybody that isn't able to make that session. I sent out a request for questions, and I got a few back. And then I have some questions that I've collected over the course of this year that I'll be addressing. This class will be a little bit different than our previous years because I'm going to talk in some detail about things I'm going to hit very lightly in this call, about what happens to the data after you submit it to us, how it gets used in the various systems that it touches, and what impact that has on the end users. So as you hear about problems or you want to affect a particular change within the data, you have a better understanding of how it all kind of works together. So that will be a strong focus in this class. If you can't attend on the 27th, I highly encourage you to hop in and take a look around when you do get a chance. And just to be sure, because we do have the question come up, there will not be any in-person classes offered this year. We'll see how things go for next year. So the first thing that I want to talk about is a reminder. This is information that I gave at the last user group meeting, but it hasn't changed, and so I think it's really important to head over again. Any PSAP or 911 center that is using geospatial call routing is using your emergency service boundary data. And they're using it by, when a 911 call comes in, they get a selection of responders on their phone screen, the police, fire, and EMS. And those responders are selected from your ESB data, but only if your alignment to the PSAP polygon that we provided is complete. So if it is not complete, they are seeing a very generic message. Your emergency service boundary data, this is the display field for those. And I know for a lot of people it's a little confusing because we have a display field in there, but we also have a law, fire, and EMS field. The reason we have those additional fields is in case you are maintaining all of this data as a single layer, and that law, fire, and EMS allows it to be broken out. Whatever you want them to see on the screen, if you are maintaining these as individual layers, you need to have in the display field. We had a couple of maintainers that had more generic information like just the PSAP's name or something like that in the display field, and it caused a little bit of confusion because they thought they had things in the right place and the 911 center wasn't seeing the data they had put in. And it was that field conflict that was causing the issue there. So also that display field has a limit of 60 characters. That's NENA's standard, it's the Kansas standard, but our phone software for the hosted solution is limited to 32 characters. And so it is the first 32 characters of that display field that they will see. If you have 36 or 38 or 60, it will just truncate. So they'll still see the first 32 characters. So it's important to make sure as you're looking at it that you check that. There is a routine within the validation tools that gives you a notice if it has gone longer than 32 characters. It's not an error because you don't have anything wrong, one, and if your PSAP happens to not be on the hosted solution, that 60-character limit applies to you. So it is only a notice, it is not an error, but it's something you should keep an eye out for. And I mentioned about the alignment needing to be complete for any of this information to display. The same issue comes up if you have an alignment problem and you're trying to do an update. So if you have completed the alignment and you have data in the system and everything's fine, but then you submit some changes to your emergency service boundary layer and it has gone out of alignment somehow, either with a small gap or overlap, or perhaps you've had a city limit change and either an error or just something that EGDMS doesn't like gets introduced, then your edit will not make it all the way into the system until that alignment issue is handled. So we check for those errors to be reported back, and we notify you if there has been any kind of concern there. But so even if you've completed the alignment, the point is you need to kind of keep an eye on that as you go forward. Next slide, please. So the second reminder is that this whole process is taking a little time. So the data actually gets into the call routing system relatively quickly, but it does not get into the GOMSAG as quickly. And the GOMSAG is what the local phone companies are looking at in order to be able to put their phone records into the system. So how this works is that when you submit to the NG911 portal, your data is processed through, and we do a submission to Intrado, which is who has the EGDMS product, every Tuesday night. If you need us to submit more quickly, say you put something in there on Thursday or Friday and you would like it to go when you submit it, let us know. We can prep another submission for Intrado. There's no limit on the number of times we can do those submissions. We just have a routine that runs every Tuesday night. So you do a submission the next Tuesday night, assuming you don't request it to go any faster, we will submit it to Intrado. Intrado says they have told us before that it will take between 1 to 4 business days, but we have been finding that it is taking between 1 and 5 for the data to actually end up in the GOMSAG. So if you add all that up and you happen to put data in on a Wednesday, it could be as long as 2 weeks before that data is available for a phone company to be able to put a record against inside the GOMSAG. So it's important to understand that delay, and if you need any assistance communicating about it or explaining it, I'll be more than happy to assist however I can, but there is nothing we can do to make it go any faster, unfortunately, with the exception of submitting to Intrado more quickly. But that 1 to 5 at Intrado is out of our control. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Rapid Deploy. Rapid Deploy is the name of a suite of products. It's a company name, actually. And one of the products that they provide is Radius Plus. Radius Plus is the new map that the 911 centers on the hosted solution are using. Radius Plus was deployed, has been deployed across the state over the last couple of months, and it was deployed in most 911 centers at the same time that they converted from old style, what's called RFAI or selective routing, call routing, to geospatial call routing, and this has caused some issues. Particularly problems with geospatial call routing, unless that problem makes the call go to the wrong 911 center, which they haven't been doing, we're very glad to say. Any other type of problem with geospatial call routing has tended to look like a map problem, even though it isn't. The biggest complaint we are getting is that the map doesn't update. To date, none of the issues that have been identified have come back to be either the GIS data or the actual mapping function inside Radius Plus. The most frequent problem has actually been that the location data is either missing or garbled when it comes to the map. And those are problems within the geospatial routing system. There's a whole lot of moving pieces to get this data from the phone provider all the way through the system and into the phone software and then into the mapping software. And not every provider was equally ready for this transition, as it has turned out. Another frequent problem that we have run into is simply understanding how a browser application works and making sure that the caching settings and everything are set properly. But the real issue that I want to bring to your guys' attention is twofold. First, the map is getting hammered hard in the mapping application is getting hammered hard as a source of problems. A lot of people are unhappy with its performance. The other thing is that most of those performance issues actually don't have anything to do with the map. They have to do with bad data coming to the map. You can't geocode an address if no one gives you one, or if that address is incomplete or is in some way scrambled. And unfortunately, that's what's happening. So the geospatial network provider, which is AT&T, the geospatial software provider, which is Intrado, and the phone software provider, Airbus, are all working on the problem. But for right now, we are hearing, and you might hear, there's a problem with the data, there's a problem with the map, it's not working. And we are, I promise, looking into every complaint that comes across and trying to assure that it is not the data and not a mapping issue. Right now, it looks like almost completely it has to do with how that data is actually getting to the map. And we don't have an anticipated date for fixes that I am aware of, or at least not one that's set in stone, but it is being worked on. So I wanted to pass that off to you guys. And then I need to talk about another application that Rapid Deploy has. So Radius Plus is the map. They really like their cloud names. And Nimbus is a separate product that comes along with the purchase that the council made. So Nimbus is a computer-aided dispatch, or CAD software, that comes with the Rapid Deploy application. And we have, Nimbus is getting ready to get rolled out and be made available to Kansas PSAPs. And most PSAPs in Kansas already have a computer-aided dispatch application of their own. Some of them really like it, some of them don't. But most of them, I imagine, will not be transitioning to use Nimbus as their primary CAD. Nonetheless, we have had a lot of conversations about the requirements for Nimbus, if there is any kind of change in GIS that is needed to support the use of this CAD system. And the answer is no. Our NG911 data, particularly the emergency service boundary layers, will get used in a different way inside Nimbus, but they're fine in the format that they are in. There is no data maintainer change that needs to happen. There's not going to be an update to the data model for it or to the validation tests. Everything we have going on will work just fine, even if your PSAP decides to use the Nimbus CAD. The data they're getting should be good as it is. The only caveat to that is that anytime you use a data set in a new way, the end user might decide that they need that data edited somehow. And so that is a possibility that once they begin using it, should they begin using it for recommendations, particularly of units, what fire department should go on a call, what police department should go on a call, they may want that information to be more detailed, more granular. They may want it divided a slightly different way, or they may want it to reflect some things that right now, where it's only displaying on their phone, they don't care quite as much to see. So I don't expect that very many people will have any changes at all, but those changes will not be in the way the data has to be maintained or in the format or in the validation tests. But there might be changes in, for example, what's in the display field or what, how you have things divided up agency to agency. And last slide, please. Oh, that one isn't mine. I thought it was.
If you have more to say, you just really keep talking.
No, but if anybody has any questions, as Eileen said before, please feel free to put them in chat because I know I ran through a lot of information. I'll be happy to answer anything I can.
Yeah, a lot of important content there shared by Sherry. Thank you very much. Well, this actually brings us to my last slide, which is a reminder that for the slides that we presented today and a recording of the webinar will be posted on the 911 Coordinating Council's website under the GIS section. We also posted on the DASK Initiatives Next Gen 911 webpage as well. So there's a couple options there. So you can look through either just the slides or actually rewatch a recording of the webinar if you're interested. We've got a quiet group today. I don't see any questions. So either we covered the questions you had or you'll think of them later. So even though we've still got a mix of Ken, Kristen, and I are still working at home, and I believe Sherry is in the office, but we're all, you can reach all of us through emails, generally the easiest way. So always, you know, never hesitate to send an email if you have a question or something's going on in your county or PSAP and you just, you know, curious about what the next step is, feel free to contact us. And if we can help you, we will. And if we can't, we'll find out someone who can. So just know that we're available, even though we're not, you know, sitting at our offices right now. So actually my home office has come a long ways. I'm, you know, pretty comfortable here now. So it's almost like I am in the office. So, okay. Well, with that, thank you everyone for joining us. I don't see any questions. So thanks again for your time. Reach out if you need anything. I hope everyone stays healthy and well. And we'll have a fourth quarter user group meeting again. We generally hold those in association with the Kansas Association of Mappers Conference, so we can do an in-person session. And as you know, really all conferences, including camp, have moved to virtual for this year. So I guess it's to be determined if we're going to do it as part of the camp conference, or we might just hold it outside of that since it won't be an in-person event anyway. So more details on that as we make those arrangements coming soon. Right. Okay, well, with that, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it. Everyone have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Eileen.